Hello, everybody. All right. Welcome to the Reelwriting broadcast of our core elements of all successful screenplays. Everybody's coming in right now. We got a lot of people starting to scroll in here. I see Alan King, an Alan, a Cheryl, a Blake, a Craig, and Eric. We expect to have quite a few people here tonight. A John, a Stephen, a Robin, a Michael, a Leslie. Everybody, welcome to the Reelwriting webinar. A lot of names here. I'm not going to mention everybody, but we know we've got a really great content here for everybody here tonight. So this is not going to be the way we normally do our webinars. For those of you who are familiar with our webinars, normally we do a lot of these one-on-one webinars where we work one-on-one with everybody. Tonight we're actually doing prepared content. It's a presentation we've done a few different times. We've done it in California a few times. We've done it in Australia. It's called the Screenplay Code, Discovering the 8 Core Elements of All Successful Screenplays. And so what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into this content because there's quite a bit to cover. And if we have time at the end, we certainly will be open to question and answer. Maybe we'll try and get in work with one or two of you on your own ideas if anybody's willing to jump in and be a guinea pig. So for the most part, I'm going to turn this presentation over to my longtime friend and writing partner, Howard Reichman. Howard is Reelwriting's senior lecturer, and he is a Hollywood director and producer, obviously a writer. He lives in Redding, California, right in the middle of Hollywood, in the middle of the thick of things out there. Give you a really great perspective on what it's like to actually be in the middle of the Hollywood community. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this over to Howard and let him kind of run the show and do his presentation here. And it's a really fantastic presentation. And without further ado, let me just switch over to Howard.
All right. Thank you, Mitch. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to first and foremost apologize for my voice. I've been battling a cold, and I'm at the tail end of it, so I'm hoping it lasts the entire 60 minutes. I think there are wagers out there whether that will be or not, but I have my tea, and my wife's refreshing it every 12 minutes, so we should be good to go. Let's start in. I'm going to start a screen share, and we're going to get right in with our PowerPoint. There we go. This is a fun graphic I found on Facebook, and I embraced it for myself. Let's go right now to the rundown for tonight, so everybody's on the same page as far as what we're going to cover. The first thing we're going to cover is the goal of this lecture. I think it's very important that we set out what we want to accomplish so that we can hopefully nail that objective by the time we're done here. Second thing is, who am I and what is Reelwriting? If you're new to Reelwriting, or you haven't used plot control, or you just met us, or you met us a year ago but don't know who we are, I'll give a little brief piece behind that. One request I have from me to you, which we'll get to, I'll keep you in suspense till then. We're going to define what is a good movie, because people are talking about movies left and right. There's independent films, there are the Oscars this week, but not everyone agrees what a good movie is. So we're going to try to come up with a definition that works for everybody so that we can then move forward with how to make a good movie. 5, this is going to be a little harsh, but this is the reality for writers. We're going to have a couple of points of fact about that. 6 is we're going to jump right from that to some inspiration to psych us up a little bit. Then we're going to go into the movie Die Hard. And you're asking yourself, why Die Hard? The movie's like 30 years old. I'll tell you why. 8 is we're going to show some video clips of Die Hard. We're showing them under the auspices of this is an educational content. We're not here to sell you anything. We're not here to sign you up for anything. This is purely to teach you about a pattern methodology that we use at Reelwriting and how it can help you benefit your writing and reinvigorate your writing and your career. Excuse me, I'll just take a sip. The core elements. This is the money. This is why you're here. We're going to discuss the 8 core elements in the Reelwriting method, and we're going to, by the time we're done learning them, you're going to have a whole new appreciation, not just for Die Hard, but for other movies out there and projects you are currently working on. And 10, we're going to watch it all kind of come together into a one nice bow at the end of it. We're actually going to see the Die Hard clip twice. Once, the first time you're going to see it, you're going to wonder, what the hell is he doing? The second time, it's going to make sense. I promise, or your money back. Okay, the goal of tonight. I'm hoping that out of tonight, you guys change the way you look at your writing. A lot of people have a negative relationship with writing. It's what's that great saying? I hate writing, I love having written. Well, we think that you should love writing too, and we're hoping that the what you come out of this will be the first seeds of reinvigorating that. Understanding blind spots. Writers have blind spots. Anyone in the creative process has a blind spot. I know that we work with a lot of writers who are, some have sold screenplays, some are very successful. They have blind spots. They, you don't know where a story's going. You have to experiment. You have to go into sort of uncharted territory, unfamiliar territory, and it's nerve-wracking. And sometimes you don't see what should be right in front of you or right next to you as far as where your story could go. And using the core elements that we're going to talk about will help kind of smooth that over a little bit, hopefully. We're going to understand the core elements and how to use them. I want you to be reinvigorated to write. I know while I'm talking about Die Hard and anything else we're going to talk about tonight, you guys are thinking about your own story. You're thinking about your own script, and that's perfectly fine. I think about my script when I'm having an argument with my wife, so it's all good. You're going to approach your story ideas with new energy and confidence, hopefully with some new ideas as well. And you're going to revisit older ideas that you might have shelved with new clarity and enthusiasm. That's always awesome when you maybe put something away a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago, when suddenly it hits you. I know how to wrap it up. I know how to fix this character. I know how to, make this movie, and you can reapproach it. And hopefully it'll change the way you look at yourself as a screenwriter. Maybe a little more energy, a little more optimism, a little more productive. At Reelwriting, just briefly, what we do, we have basically 4 different areas. We have our software Plot Control, which you might or might not know about. Plot Control is the software that actually plugs in and utilizes the methodology that I'm going to talk about tonight. We have education, in addition to these webinars that we have frequently, not frequently enough maybe. We have the Reelwriting Mega Course, which is, I think it's something on the order of 20 some odd hours of just intensive learning that really drills down deep into the core concepts of what we're talking about. And to be perfectly honest, every couple of months I review the Mega Course when I'm starting a script, because just listening to it, having that conversation about these things reinvigorates me. Works for me. Maybe not you. Maybe it will. Third, we have products. We do a max impact script review, where we take people who have completed scripts and we sort of reverse engineer them into our software, into the methodology, and kind of figure out where they're at, where they could be, give them some ideas. And we have our consulting, where we do script and project consulting with writers of all levels, people who are just starting out, people who aren't even writers. They might be, architects who want to write a script. And also we have certain clients who are very well known, are very upper echelon. And again, we talked about blind spots. They have blind spots. We assist them with that. And these are people who have track records in both the music business and entertainment. So no one's above having a coach, and we're going to go back into that as well. Who are we? Who am I? Okay. I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a producer, I'm a script consultant. I have my company, Village Filmworks, and I'm very happy to be a senior lecturer here at Reelwriting, where I get to work with writers of all calibers and all talents, and it's just awesome to help people with their creativity. Here's a picture of me, another picture of me, another picture of me. That's me working on a script in the middle. I had this habit of not shaving until I finished the script. I guess I was about page 30 at this point. Okay, a little bit about Reelwriting. This is an old friend and a noted producer, Rocky Lang. His father actually is a second-generation producer. His father, Jennings Lang, did all the those disaster movies in the 70s. Earthquake, hurricane. If it was a natural disaster, this guy bought the rights somehow and made a movie. And I'll give you a second to read it, but basically He says Reelwriting is a unique and extremely useful program to assist writers in developing a foolproof story. Having produced, written, and directed movies, he actually worked with Ridley Scott a short while back, and television. He did Remington Steele and a bunch of other shows. This screenplay program is the most useful tool I've ever seen. Plot control is the best tool for the young and established writer in helping them map out a successful story. Another friend of mine, Jeremy Miller, he's a writer-producer. He did at least one season of Entourage. I think he won a Writer's Award for it. Ally McBeal, he had his own show That Was Then on ABC. He's also a noted writer because his latest script, I think, ended up on the blacklist, which hopefully is going to be produced soon. But he's also a script doctor for a lot of big movies and television shows, and he's a mover. What can I say? In the last 15 years, I've been writing for TV and film. I've never come across a system so intuitive to the writer's needs. This is why movies used to be better than they are now. Not a very sort of a condemnation of the industry, I guess, but hey, it's easily going to shortcut the story breaking on all my projects from now on. Its value was so clearly demonstrated when we had Mitchell sit in on a script meeting on one of my projects, and in a matter of minutes, he identified and helped solve a major plot issue that had been eluding us for weeks. I was actually there, and it was pretty amazing to watch this guy who's been a writer for 20 some odd years with his own methodology, his own way of working, just suddenly light up when he saw how Mitch kind of came to a solution.
Yeah, and just a quick, just as long as you brought it up, I mean, which I know we want to get right to the content momentarily, but that story is, it's really just using these core elements, plugging in the core elements, focusing on the core elements, really is where we were able to, why I was able to do that and help those guys was specifically by applying the methodology that we're going to be discussing tonight.
Cool. So my one request is that you kind of suspend. We're very passionate about writing, and anyone who knows the alphabet can be a writer. So I'm going to ask you just to kind of, if you have skepticism or you're, going to stand up and smash your desk or your computer and be like, this is, blah, blah, blah. Suspend that for a few minutes, because I want you to kind of get the idea. We're not attached to these notions. We just found that they work. The pattern works in various movies, and I'm going to show you that. And the idea of also being coachable is that, you're on the playing field, and again, you have those blind spots. I want to, maybe through this you'll see where some of those blind spots are, and we'll move forward with that. So that's basically my one request. Okay, what is a good movie? Let's kind of just come to some kind of understanding. Naturally, it's got a good story, and it's good storytelling. Nothing worse than taking a good story and just blowing it to pieces with a horrible movie. The second thing is, character-wise, you want characters that sort of that they live. They're not, cardboard cutouts. They're not one-dimensional. They're three-dimensional characters. It's logical. Nothing's worse in a movie, a science fiction movie, that's supposed to be based on reality, and they just totally, break laws of science and physics and just, takes away the suspension of disbelief in the audience. So logical's important. It should be tight, nothing superfluous. They shouldn't introduce characters or storylines that don't go anywhere. It's just ridiculous. Everything that is introduced in the movie has some kind of payoff. I know Chekhov's line about the rifle is that he said if you're going to put a rifle, some say it's a gun, a rifle in the first act of a play, it better be fired by the third act, or else don't put the rifle in. Everyone's expecting to be fired, and it should be heightened. It should reach its full potential. You ever come out of a movie and go, that was good, but it would have been better if they did this, that, and the other thing. And the last thing is that it's a movie. At the end of the day, a script is the prospectus for a movie. And that movie should be a cinematic experience. And that should be hinted at strongly on the page. Okay, reality check. And then we're going to move into our content. The reality check is this, that when you have a script and you submit it, the typical feedback that you're going to get from agents and managers, unless your script is gangbusters, in which case that's awesome, you rock, but you're just going to hear pass. They're not going to sit down with you and tell you, let me tell you why I'm not going to buy your script. Or give you 6 figures against 7 figures and blah, blah, blah. They're just going to say, sorry, we passed, and they're going to move on to the next one. Why? Because they are going to be, if they're going to take on a movie, they're going to be spending the next X numbers of years working on this project. If your project is not the one they're going to use, they're going to move on and try to find the next one. They don't have time to deal with what they're not going to do. Studios and talent are the same. And when you go to sites like Inktip and Blacklist, you put them out there, but you might not get any feedback at all. You're not going to get a pass because you haven't submitted to anybody. They're just going to, just going to be silence, crickets. So the bottom line is, unless you option or sell a screenplay or have an agent or manager, it's rare that you will ever hear a reason for a rejection. People just they move on quickly. So what you're left with is a script that you tried to sell, that you submitted to different people in different places, and at the end of the day, nothing happened with it, and you really might not know why. The unspoken 10-page rule, which is now the 5-page rule. It used to be said, now it's said that it's 5 pages, that a producer will read approximately 10 pages of a script from somebody, and then they might just throw it in the dumpster, or they're going to continue reading. Why 10 pages and now it's 5 pages, because things move so much faster now, is because when a producer picks up a script, the one thing that they want to know more than anything, besides is this a good story, is, do I trust this writer? Do I trust the fact that he's given me a piece of material that I'm going to spend the next 90 minutes reading and investing my life into? And is he going to let me down with bad dialogue, with sloppy, setup, with, bad composition on the page? So they know that by 5 or 10 pages, so that's important. The invisible pattern no one can see unless it's not there. That's the pattern that we're going to talk about tonight. That pattern is a traditional and successful pattern of storytelling, no matter what the genre is. That if it is not in your script, no matter how exciting your script might be, they're not going to get it. They're going to have an ill feeling about it. They're not necessarily going to know why or how or be able to put it on paper or into an email, but they're just going to they're going to feel uneasy about it. Whereas we'll get into what happens with really bad ideas that do have that pattern. 99% of screenplays don't get produced, and that might be an underestimation. It's really, from our point of view, kind of sad how much energy and work and time goes into writing a screenplay. And my opinion is that if you're going to do it well, do it right, unless it's just an exercise for yourself. One-hit wonders. Those are the people who might have sold a script at some point in the last 20 years or so, and then that was made into a movie. It might have been a hit movie, and then they just never repeated their performance. So they hit on something. They did something right, but it just wasn't repeatable. And there's a whole list of people who have amazing credits in the 80s, 90s, and thousands, and they just have not. Their follow-ups have just fallen flat. Now either they went off the grid, or something happened, or they don't even realize how they did it so well in the first place that they couldn't repeat it the second time around. Screenwriting is different than any other writing, if you're a magazine writer, if you're a book author, if you write scripts for, short internet films, that's not movie writing. Movies are 85 pages plus, and they have a certain pattern of storytelling, a certain style of dialogue, a certain way it looks on the page. And if, no matter where you're coming from, you're not going to change the system. The system is what it is. So a good business decision would be to learn how the industry wants to accept it and then design it to be. Okay. What if there was a system for breaking stories that is based on the storytelling pattern found in the most successful movies? Now, breaking stories is sort of a technical term you might or might not have heard of. If you've ever been to a writer's room on a TV sitcom or something, they sit around the first at least day or so, and they're breaking the story. They're taking this bigger idea. She gets married. Then she runs away from her groom on the honeymoon, and then they break it into, okay, how are we actually going to make this work, beat by beat, scene by scene. The same thing with movies. You might have a great idea, but when it comes to actually laying it out in a compelling way, that's where people just fail left and right. Remember, movies, the movie-going experience, sitting in a theater or at home watching a movie, is a linear experience. But writing a movie is completely non-linear, which is why our system works very well for this. Sorry, a little coffee break. We believe at Reelwriting that there is a fundamental underlying pattern that is present in most, if not all, successful movies. This pattern that I'm speaking of is consistent regardless of the genre of the movie. So it could be a comedy, a drama, an action, a western, a science fiction. It's going to have this pattern. When this pattern is missing from a screenplay, it's likely they will pass on your work. Not pass on your work, but pass on your work, because they're used to reading script after script after script. When a good screenplay gets passed around Hollywood, like Reservoir Dogs did 25 years ago, people read it. People know instantly that this is a hot script. When they read something that doesn't kind of feel the same, they know it instantly as well. The next thing, when bad movies are produced, and people always ask that, well, if the system's so great, then how do all these bad movies get produced? They're produced because even the bad movies have this pattern, but they don't really fill in the gaps really well. In other words, even if you know the pattern, even if you know structure inside and out, you have to bring your creativity to the table. It doesn't write itself. People think that good screenwriting software is you pour in the alphabet on one side, on the outside, the other side shoots out an awesome Oscar-winning script. Not so. There's no replacement for creativity. There's no computer that will ever replace it in any suitable way. You can't take away the human element and the human imagination from the what's necessary for the process of writing a good script. And it is possible to stumble into this pattern. I mean, Mitch did. Mitch uncovered this pattern and taught it to me. And after we discussed about 50 movies, I said, yeah, I think you're onto something. But it took him about 10 to 20 years or so, and it could take the next guy that long, or you can learn it tonight and can shortcut your process by years maybe. Okay, I'm only bringing this up because we're working with someone in the pop music arena who's a very well-known person, and the way I was able to kind of get through to them about that the pattern movie making, storytelling, is to describe it as a song. I said, if someone came to you in the there's like 3 choruses in a row, then a verse, then another chorus. Does that make any sense? And he's like, no, it's ridiculous. I said, well, people write movies that way. Then he kind of got it. Pop songs, for the most part, have the same kind of pattern. If you look at the lyrics of any song, you're going to see verse 1, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, so on and so forth. They might mix it up a little bit, but essentially it stays. The pattern persists. Okay. Now a little inspiration. Let's bring it up a little bit. This is the Writers Guild minimums for an original screenplay, including a treatment. It's effective right now, so hurry up and get your numbers. Let's look at this in depth for a second. $67,804 for, I believe it's a below $5 million movie. That's what, if you're Writers Guild, that's what your minimum payment for the script would be. And if it's above $5 million, it's $127,295. Not so bad considering it takes some people just a matter of weeks to write a script. I'm thinking of one friend in particular who put on Facebook that he sold 5 pitches and a script the other day. I think it was Monday, which is insane. Another thing to note that's interesting is that if you look at the price, the fee for delivering an original treatment, now the treatment is not even the script. The treatment is pretty much in prose version, an outline of the movie from start to finish with the major beats and sequences noted in detail. But the amount of money they receive for just finishing the treatment is the same as for the first draft of the screenplay. So I guess what we're trying to say here is that the importance of the treatment and the story breaking process is so important that it actually they allocate the same amount of money as they would for a first draft just to that process. So it can't be underestimated. Okay, these are the minimums unless your script is in demand. When a script is in demand, what usually happens is it goes into what's called a bidding war. Now, a bidding war is when a couple of studios or producers hear about your script and they all want it for themselves. And that's a great situation, one I hope that each and every one of you and me gets into one of these days, sooner than later. When a script goes to a bidding war, excuse me, when a script goes to a bidding war, studios from all over are going to just up the price. It was famous for happening in the 90s. It kind of happens here and there again, but these are the kind of prices that scripts can solicit when they are hot. And if you look at this, a lot of these movies just totally tanked. Deja Vu was a big stinker in the box office. Tony Scott, I miss him. The Long Kiss Goodnight was a stinker. Medicine Man, I think, did okay. Evan Almighty, we won't even discuss. But the other ones, pretty much, the writers got their fees. The movies didn't do well, but that's regardless. If you look at these names also, a lot of these guys are workhorses. Shane Black, Joe Esterhaus, David Koepp, Brian Helgeland. These are guys whose names you see repeatedly in movies. And if you were to look at all the list of writers who participate in the writing of a big movie, they might be unlisted, but they're going to be on that list. These are guys that definitely have a method and a methodology, and they use it repeatedly to enrich themselves. Okay. Why Die Hard? You're asking yourselves. I mean, I'm glad you guys tuned in, regardless of the fact that I was showing Die Hard, as opposed to a movie that came out last year. But Die Hard is a really special movie. Probably because my parents like it and I like it. It's an intergenerational thing. They like it for one reason. I like it for a lot of reasons. But why Die Hard? First of all, by our definition, we're trying to expose the pattern in successful movies. This movie was very successful, both critically and at the box office. It's created not just an action genre, not just a franchise, but a whole genre. I mean, if you look at the pitches that happened after Die Hard came out, even for the next 10 or 15 years, even still, I'm willing to bet they have, Die Hard on a boat. It's Die Hard in space. It's Die Hard on, on ice. Basically, it's a genre-defining movie, and it redefined the action movie to be bigger, deeper, and more three-dimensional than they had been in the past. They have a lovable hero, John McClane, a lovable villain, Hans Gruber, and there's symmetry between the two, because although you're rooting for McClane, you can't help but love Gruber. It's so well done, it's so well written, it's so well acted. It's tight storytelling. As I'm going to show you, there's really nothing extraneous in this movie. Nothing gratuitous. It's tight storytelling. They tell you exactly what you need to know. Every scene dealing, up to that first gunshot is important, essential, and unless you pay attention to it, you lose a thread of certain aspects of it. Whoops. There's depth. There's character. The character and plot relationship is so amazingly intertwined. That's where the magic of this movie really lies. Because there are a ton of action movies, a ton of bullets fly in different movies, but this movie was different, and we're going to explore why and how. And last, I already showed you, but it's a kick-ass action movie with great casting, shot well, edited well, great music, etc. From a purely viewer, audience member point of view, it was a great movie, just hands down. So, Mitch, if you don't mind, let's roll clip 1. We're going to roll the clip that doesn't have the titles.
Yep, okay, so let me get this set up to roll.
It's 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And just pay attention, and you're going to wonder why I showed you these, but we're going to definitely get around to that soon.
Okay, present myself. Hello again. Let me just get the clip here going. Take 1 second. So Die Hard was one of the movies that I really analyzed initially when I was realizing a lot of these patterns that we're going to be displaying. So that's another reason why Die Hard is. So I think this should be it. Howard, do you see the correct video there? Everybody should see my screen now, my YouTube screen.
Yeah, that's the right one. No titles, yeah.
All right.
Just type it in there.
Looking for
De Janeiro.
Then you must be John McClane. In the meanwhile, her office is right back here.
I missed you.
I guess you didn't miss my name, though, huh? Since when did you start using Ms. Gennaro?
It's a Japanese company. They figure a married woman's got...
You are a married woman, Holly. You're married to
Are
me.
we gonna have this Ms. Gennaro?
Ho.
Our security guard we missed.
Usually tied up policemen growing fat on pension. No. This is something else.
Carl, come to the floor.
Marco, you and Fritz take the body upstairs and out of sight. I don't want the hostages to think too much.
Mayday, mayday. Anyone copying Channel 9?
Attention, whoever you are. This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
You're most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, Hans. Wrong guess. Would you like to go for double jeopardy where the scores can really change?
Who are you then?
Just a fly in the ointment, Hans.
Mr. Mystery Guest. You have me at a loss. You know my name, but who are you?
You the guy in the car?
What's left of him? Can you identify yourself?
Not now. Maybe later.
So what do I call you?
Call me... Roy.
Well, who the hell you been talking to? You don't know that either, sir. You won't give us his name. Powell, has it occurred to you he could be one of the terrorists pulling your chain? I don't think so, sir.
Mr. Takagi chose his people well, Mrs.
Gennaro. Miss Gennaro.
Touching, cowboy, touching. Or should I call you Mr. McClane? Mr. Officer, John McClane.
I'm John McClane. You're,
Clay. Bill Clay. Put down the gun.
Oh, well.
You got something. Tell me you got something.
Just McLean's name, badge number, employment record, vital statistics, and his family's home address.
So is there something you'd like to say to them as they're watching?
Come home.
Mrs. McClane. How nice to make your acquaintance. McClane, I have some news for you.
Hi, honey.
Still the cowboy, Mr. McClane.
How is my wife, Holly? Holly Gennaro.
Holly McClane.
Hello, Holly.
I think that is the end of the clip. Let me get it back over to Howard. And he'll
That's the end of
conclusion.
That's the end of the clip. And how many people are really pissed off at me right now because I cut out all the good parts of the movie. I left in one gunshot at the end, just, I felt compelled to. Keep that clip in mind. We're going to show it again, but by the time we show it again, I think your understanding of all those key moments, or what I'm calling key moments, will really kind of crystallize in a new and awesome way. Let's kind of do a little learning now. At its core, at their most basic, fundamental level, movies are about one of two things. Now, I'm not talking about art films. Different altogether. But movies, okay? Narrative movies are about something happening to someone or someone trying to do something. Now just let that sink in for a second. I'm not going to race because we're getting to the real good stuff here. Movies are about one of two things. Something happening to someone or someone trying to do something. Okay? Now, let's take it a step further. The someone is the character component. Go with me on this. The someone is the character component, the protagonist in our movie. And the something is the plot component. Okay? Now, I don't see feedback, so I'm going to let this sink in for one more minute, not even a couple of seconds, and just keep this in mind. Something happening to someone or someone trying to do something. Every movie. Okay. Core elements. Core elements. Here's what we're getting to. This is what you need to know right now, moving forward, about the core elements. 1, you need to know the definition of each core element. We're going to go through that tonight. You're going to have a deep understanding of it. I'm going to take my time going through it so you really kind of get it. Okay, it's not very difficult, but I am going to have you think about things, phrases, and words that you're familiar with in the lingo of filmmaking that's going to have a slightly different definition than what you might be used to. So the definition of each core element. Second thing is the presence and position of each of these core elements in your storyline. Your storyline, if it's a narrative film, is going to have elements, all these core elements within there. Your characters are going to be doing something. They're going to be up against something. They're going to be striving for something. Assuming your movie lasts more than 30 minutes, they're going to come up against more things, and each of these things can be labeled with a core element. Third thing is the relationship of each core element to the others in the context of your story. Okay, so the definition, the presence of these core elements in your story, and the relationship of the core elements in your story to each other. Okay? Now, I think we're going to make this PowerPoint available at some point after this. So I'm going to move forward, and you can you'll be able to refresh if you want to later on. Core elements. Remember, I talked about the character component and the plot component. The character is who. The plot is the character is the someone. The plot is the something. Here are the core elements. Everything to do with the character I've put in blue. Everything to do with the plot I've put in red. And as you see, they're lined up a specific way, which we'll get into, because each one relates to its opposite. Okay. Subplots rounded out, so it's like 9 core elements, but the subplots we kind of keep separate for a reason. You'll see. Now, the fact that each element relates to its counterpart, it's that relationship between them that creates the depth and the quality of the story, and we'll show you how as well. Okay. So, characterization and setting. That's where the setup of your character and the subplots are. We're going to get more into that as well, too, so if you feel like, don't worry, no one gets left behind. The setup and the subplots are going to be realized in the characterization and setting of your script. The plot, motivation, and primary situation is what your movie's about. It's the inciting incident and your character's, your protagonist's reaction to that. That is the fundamental element of the movie that makes it a movie, in this case, one that we would recognize. The third is the resolution goal and the primary obstacle. This is the second tier of the story, the intensification of the story where the stakes are raised and the eventual resolution. Okay? And the personal goal and theme. This is where the story and the character's depth are realized. And all of these core elements will be defined for you very carefully so you can actually think about either movies that you're familiar with, scripts that you're writing, ideas that you have, and you'll understand through that exactly what these mean and how they are applicable. I love these keynote effects. I'm sorry. I try not to go too crazy with them. Here's your movie on a kind of mapped out. The beginning's on the left, the end credits on the right. In the course of any movie, and I'm pointing to my screen, so pretend I'm standing in front of you pointing at your screen, the setup is where we meet our main character in his natural habitat, or whatever habitat he's going to be in. He might be, an astronaut on his way to the moon, but that's where he is. That's part of who he is. As we move to the right, he encounters people and situations that form the subplots, and then something's going to happen that is going to be what your movie's about. You know, if it's a guy on his way to the moon, like Apollo 11, Apollo 13. Everyone's yelling it at me right now, and I think it's Apollo 13. They're on their way to the moon.
13, now it's 13.
Thank you very much. It's good to have a guy in my ear. Apollo 13, they're on their way to the moon, and something happens. Okay, and that's what happens is the primary situation. So when people say, what's the movie about? Well, it's about a bunch of guys on their way to the moon and something happens. Moving to the right, as they deal with that thing that happened, they now encounter more problems because now they're running out of oxygen. That's a second tier issue. And as we move to the right, they have to deal with it in a constructive way that is the drama of the balance of the movie. They resolve it, and in the resolution goal, and then we roll credits, and there's your movie. Every movie unfolds like this, regardless of the genre. I know we've tested about 50 movies. They all work the same way. And the beauty of each movie and why each movie is successful in its own right is because the creativity that was brought to the table within the construct of this pattern is the beauty. That's the art. Okay, so moving forward. Let's start our definitions, because this is going to be really important. Characterization. Characterization are the details about the protagonist, about your main character, that are relevant to the story. Now, you know, I had an issue with a client. I asked him who the main character is, and he told me. And then he went on to tell me so much more about every other character that the main character, as they thought it, really wasn't the main character. They had much less screen time, much less, involvement to their story, and I really had them rethink. Maybe that's not your main character. You seem to know so little about them. They have so little to do. So when I talk about the protagonist, it's your main character. So the characterization aspect is these are details that are relevant to the story. Don't give the guy a tattoo if he just, if there's no purpose of it. Maybe the tattoo on a businessman means he might have spent some time in jail. He might have been in the Navy. He might have been a biker growing up. But if he was none of those, then giving him a tattoo just kind of confuses the audience. So that's just sort of a stupid example. We're also not talking about their background. I don't care what they had for breakfast unless what they had for breakfast caused them to miss the bus that then caused an accident that then got us into the story. I don't care what he had for breakfast. I don't care if he grew up being loved or hated unless it has to do with the story. So the characterization are personality traits, desires, ambitions, physical and behavioral attributes. Okay, it's basically who this character is when the movie starts. When they come on the screen, they're really good looking, like Harrison Ford in a bunch of movies. We know something about him already, or he's, or something else. Who he is when the movie starts is made up of the characterization. Now I'm jumping down to personal goal because personal goal is very tied in with characterization. Personal goal, whereas characterization might be the physical traits about the character. Like John McClane is a cop from New York. The personal goal is what do they want, what do they want in the first couple of moments of your movie? Because a movie has about maybe between 10 and 20 minutes in most movies before something happens that the movie's really about. In those 10 to 20 minutes, this character's doing something. He's living his life. He's working hard to reunite with his daughter. He's, training for the Olympics in 2018 or whenever they're going to be. He's, trying to pay his rent. He wants to do something. That's his personal goal. So the personal goal, as we define it, is the fundamental drive that clearly defines who the protagonist is. Okay? When I say clearly, I mean clearly. We want to be very specific. It reveals something about them, often a flaw, not always, that is relevant to the movie. Okay? What the protagonist is trying to achieve when you first meet them in your movie. Okay? Every movie has it. Someone's trying to get over a lost love. Someone's trying to, get a promotion. Something as simple as that. Okay, we're going to jump now to the plot side of things. Again, the plot's in red, characters in blue. The setting, excuse me a second. The setting is the world of the movie, not the character's ordinary world. So Like Sandra Bullock in Gravity, it opens up with her in space. That's the world of the movie, but she is, it's her first time in space. If anyone saw the movie, she can't wait to get home. She almost wishes she never went up there for good reason. But the world of the movie is what's happening in space. It's foreign to her. Okay? So it's almost like a characteristic of the movie. The setting is just like the traits are to the characterization of the character. You'll often hear directors like Woody Allen say, or people say about Woody Allen, location was another character. Like New York was another character in Manhattan. If you did it in Detroit, it wouldn't have been the same movie. Setting is also time and place. Die Hard takes place around Christmas, which is the reason why there's a party that night. It takes place in a skyscraper. This is all relevant to the setting. So when you're listing the attributes of the setting, these are all things you want to consider. And the setting again could be New York City. It could be in space. It could be an elevator. It could be wherever the main, part of your movie takes place. Okay? What the character is to characterization, the setting is to plot. The primary situation, now we're going to really get into what the movie's about. Okay, this is a very important definition. The primary situation, which we're going to speak a lot of, is the specific and unique event taking place that makes this specific time in your characters, in the protagonist's life, so unique that it's worth relating. On the timeline of the average person, 80, 90, 100 years, okay, there are movies that have been made that take place, they're 2 hours in the life of this guy, happen in real time. Why those 2 hours? Why not 2 hours when he was, 6 years old or 48 years old or whatever? Because it wasn't interesting. The movie, the primary situation is the reason for the movie. You're only writing the movie because someone is trying to do something or something is happening to someone. Okay? Now, I'm going to make it easy for you because this is just great. Mitch really set this up so beautifully. The primary situation always presents itself as one of three things. It's a problem, an opportunity, or a desire. Now, I'm sure you have a movie in mind, or at least two or three you can kind of grasp at quickly in your minds. Think of what the primary situation was or is in those movies, and whether it falls into the category of a problem, an opportunity, or a desire. Sometimes it could be a mix of both. Meeting an old girlfriend could be a couple of different things. But, especially if you're married. But it's always one of those three things. The common term for this, we call it the primary situation, because it involves a lot of different, it's a sequence as opposed to a moment. But the inciting incident is what you'll commonly hear in the jargon of other writing programs. Okay. Yeah, this is also the answer when someone asks, hey, you saw that movie last night, what's it about? Well, it's about, and you will invariably say what the primary situation is. Okay. Moving back to the character side. Plot motivation. Okay? Plot motivation is the response by the protagonist to the primary situation. Okay? There's a caveat to that, but I'm going to save it for a moment. The protagonist is going to encounter something. Let's say it's a problem or an opportunity or a desire, and they're going to respond to it in some way. It's a major decision that's going to shift the course of the movie. And that also it makes your protagonist active, which is something that is desirable in screenplays. Passive protagonists don't really work well in movies. Okay? That your character is going to make a decision based on what was brought to him. Okay? Someone wants to start a fight. His plot motivation is going to be either to engage him and win the fight, run like hell away, protect family, or any other number of things. But there's going to be a major decision. Okay, that's the plot motivation. The caveat is that usually is common for action movies, where there's a primary situation that brings a problem, and then our hero has to react. We're going to see that with John McClane very soon. In dramas, romantic comedies, often the plot motivation will come first. He wants to meet girl A, so he then goes and engages her, and then the primary situation happens. Okay, it's the difference between something happening to someone and someone trying to do something, is the order of whether primary situation or plot motivation really comes first. Okay. The plot motivation, the response of the character to the primary situation, is always logical and specific and for the purpose of resolving or overcoming that primary situation. Okay? We're going to see that again. John McClane, Die Hard, they make it so simple, so simple. The protagonist will more often, usually, do something in response to the primary situation that you or I would do. Okay? And we're going to see that John McClane, although he's a hero and he really kicks butt in the movie, doesn't immediately. His plot motivation after the terrorists take over is very simple, very specific, and very safe. It's what any of us would do. Okay. The plot motivation is always a straightforward, obvious, and logical choice to most easily overcome the primary situation. I guess the key word there is most easily. It's the decision or the choice the character makes so they can most easily resolve a situation that they don't want to be in the first place. They're not going to make some big show out of trying to do X, Y, and Z. They're going to take the most direct, efficient, logical, specific way and try to resolve it. And if they do, well, that leads us to the middle of the second act. Okay? Now, if the success or failure of their plot, of what they do in reaction to this primary situation, the success or failure of what they do, the choice they make, and the route they take in their plot motivation is not important. You're saying, what? No, it's not important. Because there are movies, there are stories where the character's plot motivation, he's entirely successful in what he tries to do to resolve it. But the movie continues on for another hour because the next phase takes place, and we're going to get into that. If they fail at it, then they're going to try again and again and again in the course of the movie, and that kind of makes sense. But overall, when it comes down to it, the success or failure of the character in trying to resolve the primary situation is not important to the way the core elements round out the movie and the narrative of the movie. Okay? Because that character will realize that it does not resolve the problem or the opportunity as they thought and as we thought it would. Okay, we're swinging back over to the plot side. What happens when the character tries to or takes steps to resolve the primary situation by invoking a plot motivation, an action? Okay? When they succeed or whether they fail, the primary obstacle is still there. The primary obstacle is a failure, a complication, or a journey. Okay? That the protagonist encounters when he or she tries to overcome the primary situation. Okay? In Die Hard, we're going to see that it's basically a complication. In Star Wars, it was a journey. I'm trying to think of other movies that are very simple to grasp at. You might be thinking of them right now. But it's going to be either a failure, a complication, or a journey that the protagonist encounters when he or she tries to overcome the primary situation. Okay? At this point, the stakes are raised. We're deep into the movie. Okay, the stakes are raised. The children are being held hostage. The plane's running out of fuel. It's getting desperate. Okay? If not for the primary obstacle, the story would be resolved and the movie's over. So, let's say the character, in response to a primary situation, their plot motivation is to do X, Y, and Z. And it works. And this problem's solved. Well, basically roll credits. The problem is you're only 40 minutes into your movie at that point. Something else has to happen. That thing that has to happen is either going to be a failure if they don't succeed, a complication. Yeah, they managed to kill that guy, but he's not the one in charge. That guy's the one in charge, and he's going to, destroy you. And now we're in the second part of the movie. Or the third part's a journey. What you want isn't found here. You have to go there to get it. And suddenly now they're on a journey. Okay? Whether it's emotional or physical. That's the primary obstacle. When we start going into Die Hard and pointing out what's what in the scope of Die Hard, I think it'll solidify these things a little better. The resolution goal. The resolution goal is like the plot motivation. It's a response to the primary obstacle, except this response is a much more matured, experienced response. Okay? The plot motivation was like a gut reaction. What do we do? Quick. The resolution goal is more thought out. The characters, we're now, an hour or more into the movie. The character has been through some stuff. He's learned a couple of things. He's not as naive as he was at the beginning. Okay? So the resolution goal is the second effort, the first one being the plot motivation. The second effort by the protagonist after plot motivation to resolve the primary situation. John McClane still has to rescue the terrorists, still has to rescue the terrorists. They have to rescue the hostages. He has to rescue his wife, who's now being taken hostage, and that is what's going to ultimately resolve the movie. We'll explore what he tried to do in the first place, but what he has to resort to doing is fighting the terrorists himself because no one else is there to step in. The resolution goal is always an unexpected effort, different or unforeseen, brought about by a new revelation, information, or realization. The thing I think of is use the Force, Luke. Okay? They need to blow up this Death Star. I don't think Luke had it in his mind necessarily when he suited up that he was going to, put away his computer and use the Force. That's something that came to him. It was unexpected, both for him and for us. Unforeseen. And it came through a revelation or realization about himself being a Jedi. That's the example that just, came to me right now. The resolution goal opens up a new way of dealing with the primary obstacle, primary situation, or both. Using the Force in that example is the new way of dealing with it. It also, more often than not, is the conceptual opposite of the plot motivation. You'll see that in Die Hard. It is the conceptual opposite of plot motivation. So if in response to the primary situation the character tries to do A, well, as he grows and experiences through the movie, he's going to realize the resolution goal is not to do A, it's to do negative A, the opposite. And that's going to win. Now what that negative A and the positive A is, that's where the creative insight and creative energy and work comes. But knowing that he has to do something that is the conceptual opposite of what he tried before at least narrows the path with which you have to, dream up your sequence, your movie. Theme. Oh boy. Okay. Theme. I'm going to start by saying what theme is not. Okay? Theme is not what you think it is. At least we're not going to use it as that. Theme is often confused with subject matter. What's the movie? What's the theme of the movie? Oh, the theme of the movie is, don't ruin the world because our kids have to inherit it. Environmentalism. That's not the theme. That's subject matter. We have a definition of theme that works much better than the traditional definition. Okay? And here it is. Theme is the concept or commonality that is expressed throughout the movie. And I know you're all saying, what? Okay? I can't tell you what the theme is. I can tell you that you're going to understand what it is once we see Die Hard. Okay? That 3-minute 40-second clip again. So the theme is a concept or commonality that is expressed throughout the movie continually. Okay? It's the reinforcement of this idea that occurs throughout the movie in key places, usually in subplots. Okay? If you didn't get that, don't worry. Bookmark it in your mind. We're going to come around to it when we look at Die Hard. Okay? So here are the core elements, just to refresh. Okay? And here we are back at our through line for the movie. Okay? Thinking about Die Hard. Okay? Kind of have this in mind as we go forward. Now we're going to look at Die Hard. Okay. In broad strokes, because there's a lot to this movie. a lot of details, a lot of character traits, a lot of things going on. We're going to really work in broad strokes. Okay, let's determine first if it's something happening to someone or someone trying to do something. And to do that, let's just kind of break down the movie a little bit into three lines. One is John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, a New York cop, flies to Los Angeles in order to reunite with his wife. The story takes place during a nighttime Christmas party. It's not Christmas Eve, as I once thought. I looked at it again. It's a Christmas party on a high floor in a skyscraper in LA. The skyscraper's right down the block from me. I love watching it as I drive by. The terrorists, led by Hans Gruber, seize the building and take everyone hostage. Okay? So is this something happening to someone or someone trying to do something as a primary situation? Well, I think it's something happening to someone. I think that John McClane happens to be in this building, and these terrorists happen to be storming it that night, and they're going to basically mess up whatever plans anybody there had for that evening. So I think it's something happening to someone. Something.
Sorry, can I hear in here for a second, Howard? It's important.
Yeah, sure.
It's very important because both things are always happening in almost every movie, and I don't want to say every movie, but I'm pretty sure it's every movie. It's just which one is this really resigned to subplots and the character more, and which one is about the primary situation. So when it comes to Die Hard, the something is happening to someone is the primary situation, but the someone trying to do something then becomes the subplot, and that's where he's trying to reunite with his wife. So they're both present. It's just that what ends up happening is which one becomes the primary situation and which one sort of becomes that personal goal. So we'll point that.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's true. When John McClane comes on the screen, he's trying to do something. He is someone trying to do something. And we'll explore what that is in a minute. If you remember the movie, it'll come easy to you. But the primary situation.
Right, that's your point. Your point is the primary situation is always one of these two specifically that you're focusing on.
Right, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to plug Die Hard into our core elements. And that should clear up a lot of things for people, hopefully. All right, here we go. Characterization. What do we know about John McClane? Let's just make a list. I made a list for us. He's a streetwise New York cop. When he's on the plane, the passenger he's talking to, when the plane lands, sees the gun, and we're like, whoa, who's this guy? He goes, that's okay, I'm a cop, and on the job 11 years. Okay? We know about that scene where he's barefoot because of the advice the guy on the plane gave him, and the barefoot part just makes the experience with the terrorists and the shards of broken glass even much more painful. Okay? Now, the barefoot thing is not a character element of him. It's not like this guy loves to go barefoot, but it's a characterization that is intrinsic and important to the story in the context of this movie. Okay? If you like to go skinny dipping, in Alaska, that has no relevance to this. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't end up on this list. He loves his wife. How do we know that? Well, his whole purpose of coming from New York to L.A. is to rekindle their marriage, which is on the rocks. He also has 2 children. We know that from the story. So those are facts about him. He's also smart. He understands his situation immediately, whereas I forgot the guy's name. I really looked for it, and I gave him my best shot, and I couldn't come up with it yet. But the guy who exposes, tells Hans Gruber John McClane's name, thinks he can negotiate with this guy. McClane yells back at him, "You don't know this guy like I do." You have no idea what this guy's capable of. And then the guy gets promptly shot in the head. So he's smart. He understands the situation. He understands the peril that he's in immediately when these guys break in. His wife is corporate, lives in L.A. There's tension over her choices which threaten their marriage. Now, this has to do with her, but it really has to do with him because this is what he's reacting to. She's corporate. He's a street cop or a detective. We don't really know. He's a detective, I think. She lives in L.A. He lives in New York. We're pointing out disparity between the couple, which are, plot points that add to the drama and add to their plot, their subplot. And there's tension over her choices, which we understand already. She changes her name back to her maiden name, so on and so forth. Okay, the setting of Die Hard, very simple. High floor in a skyscraper. It's Christmas time. It's in Los Angeles. It's nighttime. The whole movie takes place in one night. It's important to the setting. Several floors are incomplete in the building, which lends to some awesome shootouts and story points. Nakatomi elegant. It's the whole nature of where the wife works. The elegance of the place, which gets shot to hell in the course of the movie, is an important aspect to the setting. It's the fact that there was shards of glass and building tools, all elements that are part of the fact that the building is under construction still on a few floors, lends to certain plot elements that are important to the movie, and the elevators play a role. Okay, the primary situation. Can anyone guess? Terrorist sees the building. Very simple. Hey, you saw Die Hard last night. What's it about? It's about a guy who, terrorist sees a building. He has to go kick some ass. Terrorist sees the building. Primary situation. Plot motivation. Now remember, the plot motivation is the character's sort of knee-jerk response to the primary situation. So the terrorists take over the building. What does John McClane do? Does he try to fight back? Does he take a machine gun and kick some ass? No. He does what you and I would do. He tries to alert the police. The first 20 minutes or so, I think, I charted it once, about the first 20-25 minutes of the movie after the terrorists come in is all him trying to alert the police. He pulls the fire alarm. He gets on the police radio. We saw that part. And all he's trying to do is he wants to hand it over. He doesn't want to be a hero. He just wants to get out of this situation like any of us do. He tries to call the police. And in the end, he's successful. The police are called. Then the FBI comes in. But the movie continues on after that. Okay? So he's not trying to stop the terrorists. He's trying to call the police. That's his plot motivation. A good amount of the movie is spent in pursuit of that very simple but very dangerous goal. And we're right there with him. We know what he's trying to do every beat of the way, and we feel the frustration when it doesn't work. And then when it does work, we think, good, as he does. But nope, we have a primary obstacle in our way after that. Okay, so he does succeed. He calls the police. He throws the body onto Sergeant Al Powell's car, and immediately that sets the police in motion. But the movie's not over yet because we're only like the 40-minute mark at that point. A primary obstacle. What happens after the police are alerted? Movie's not over. Movie gets more intense. Okay? McClane is still trapped in the skyscraper. That part's not over. The FBI and the police have proven themselves to be useless. Bumbling idiots. The only person with a brain on the ground is Al Powell, who is McClane's grows to be his buddy, but a character who's part of the plot side of things, as we'll see later. So the police and the FBI are useless. So his objective throughout the first part of the movie pretty much amounted to nothing, except complications. The terrorists know his identity now before they didn't. So now they know it's John McClane, and they know he has their detonators. And the fact that he has their detonators, and he knows that they want their detonators, he finds out that their plan is to blow the whole roof of the building, which is a pretty substantial primary obstacle, because in that process, they're going to kill the hostages under the guise of releasing them to the gullible police and FBI. Okay, so the terrorists are going to pretend that they're going to release the hostages. They're going to blow everybody up. In the confusion of body parts and whatnot, they're going to escape with the bearer bonds, as Hans Gruber reveals in his moment of revelation. Holly, McClane's wife, is taken hostage. So the stakes for McClane personally are at their highest. His wife's in jeopardy. His kids are essentially in jeopardy, as we saw, and he's certainly in jeopardy. Can't get much worse than that. Okay? His resolution goal. How does he deal with this? Okay? Now, I'm not looking at something specific like, well, first he grabs a machine gun, and then he kills the guy on the stairs. No, I'm looking at sort of the conceptual idea of how he deals with this. And in an action movie, he takes it upon himself, as action heroes do, to fix the situation. Okay? Now, it might seem like a simple solution. I mean, and the complexities and the details of, how he does it. Again, that's the creativity you bring to the table. But the fact that the first part of the movie, his plot motivation, was to contact the police, to contact the authorities like you and I would, Okay, and the second part, the resolution goal, is he has to take care of it himself, arm himself, and start killing these guys left and right to save his wife. That's the conceptual opposite of the plot motivation. As simple as it might be, you would be amazed how many writers take such situations and just complicate them like out the door. It's crazy. Okay? He basically makes two decisions in this movie, and everything else are sub decisions he makes as a result. The first one is I gotta get out of here and call the police. The second one is I gotta go save my wife. Everything else is a consequence of what's brought to him through his situation based on those two major decisions. Okay? His personal goal. His personal goal is to reunite with his wife and save their marriage. Okay? Not to battle terrorists. When he gets off the plane in LA and he gets in the limo, that whole scene is basically setting the stage for why he's there, what his marriage is about, what kind of person he is. It kind of gets all that out of the way, because once he gets to Nakatomi, boom, we're into the story. Okay? And it's done beautifully and efficiently. Okay? And he doesn't just spill the beans. The limo driver asking him a bunch of poking questions, and he kind of answers in a way that we know exactly what's going on and what it's about. It's not rocket science, but they do it so well. Okay, so we have one left, the theme. Show of hands, just kidding. Who can guess, unless you saw the title card at the beginning of the first video, or I spilled it already, what the theme, our theme, that we're putting on this of Die Hard is? Now remember, the theme is that recurring element that rears its head in all these different, throughout the movie, mostly in subplots. Okay? I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to back it up with data, and then I'm going to show you that clip again, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. The theme of Die Hard is identity. No, wait, Howard, the theme is terrorists shouldn't take over buildings in LA. No, that's a story point. The theme is one man can make a difference. No, that's not it. It's identity. Okay? And here's my supporting proof. When he comes into Nakatomi, he can't find her name on the bells, on that list of that very antiquated, obsolete computer list of names. He can't find her under McLean. So he thinks, then he pokes around and finds it under Gennaro, her maiden name. That's upsetting to a guy who's there to try to save his marriage. Okay? They argue about it at the party. I missed you. I guess you didn't miss my name, though. Okay? When McLean contacts the police, that whole back and forth is about who is this guy? Okay? The police want to know, the FBI wants to know, the terrorists certainly want to know. They call him the cowboy. He tells Al Powell, call me Roy. Okay? His identity is revealed during a key moment when that idiot in Holly's office tries to negotiate a deal, gives him McLean's name. Okay? Then there's that scene where Hans is poking around and he's caught by McLean, but McLean never saw what Hans looks like, so Hans conceals his identity. And then when Hans, I hope I'm not overcomplicating this, when Hans Gruber knows John McClane's identity, he's sitting right in Holly's office. So when he says something like, compliments to your boss, miss, and she says Gennaro, okay? So the change of her name probably saved her life right then and there. Okay, so the fact that she concealed her name, concealed her identity as a McClane, much to the upset of Bruce Willis's character, really saves her throughout the movie. Until the reporter reveals the identities. If you remember, the reporter goes to the house, interviews the kids. Holly's then taken hostage. And at the end of the movie, after all said and done, and everything that could be blown up, that could possibly be blown up is blown up, she emerges from the building with battered and bruised and bleeding Bruce Willis, and he introduces her to the cop, Al Powell, and says, "This is my wife, Holly Gennaro." And she corrects him and says, "Holly McLean." Okay? Now, where do most of these revelations actually take place. Okay, this aspect of identity, the theme of which actually lives in the subplots. The main plot of the terrorists take over. They kill people. They want the bonds. They're drilling through the safe. And Bruce Willis is trying to call the police and do this and that. So identity is not really an active issue in terms of that. It is because they don't know who he is, but it feeds in with all the subplots, of which every one of these that I checked actually lives in a subplot. The whole story of McClane and his wife is a subplot of the movie. Yes, it's essential to the movie, but it's a subplot. Okay. Okay. Mitch.
Okay. Great work.
Let's watch number 2. But read the graphics this time, and you're going to kind of slowly see how this all kind of comes together.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to replay the same exact clip that we played early in the webinar, and you're going to see that what we've done is titled it now to call out how all those clips that were in that original clip from Die Hard, all those clips, they were all relevant to the theme of identity. And let me go ahead and get myself set up here. Can you see the video now, Howard?
Yes, I can. You want to? Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go over here.
I'm here to see Holly McClane.
Just type it in there.
Looking for
Gennaro.
Yeah.
Then you must be John McClane. In the meanwhile, her office is right back here.
I missed you.
I guess you didn't miss my name, though, huh? Since when did you start using Ms. Gennaro?
It's a Japanese company. They figure a married woman's got...
You are a married woman, Holly. You're married to me.
Are we going to have Ms. Gennaro?
A security guard we missed.
Usually tied up and this very fat on a pension. No, this is something else.
Carl, come so far.
Marco, you and Fritz take the body upstairs and out of sight. I don't want the hostages to think too much.
Mayday, mayday. Anyone copying Channel 9?
Attention, whoever you are. This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
You are most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, Hans. Wrong guess. Would you like to go for double jeopardy where the scores can really change?
Who are you then?
Just a fly in the ointment, Hans.
Mr. Mystery Guest. You have me at a loss.
What happened there?
You know my name, but who are you?
You the guy in the car?
What's left of him? Can you identify yourself?
Not now. Maybe later.
So what do I call you?
Call me... Roy.
Well, who the hell you been talking to? We don't know that either, sir. He won't give us his name. Powell.
Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's delaying here a little bit. Let me. I had it all preloaded too. Let me play it back a little bit. Yeah, we're having some
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
But as you can see, that
He's Mitch, or no? It looks like it's on. It'll go now.
I don't know. It's frozen up. I'm making a new page. All right, let's reload this.
I see it. It's moving. It looks like. All right.
I'm here to see Holly McClane.
Just type it in there.
We're gonna watch it again.
Can we skip it?
Yeah, I can skip it, but I can.
Holly, you're married.
Ms. Gennaro.
A security guard we missed.
Usually tied up and this very fat on a pension. No, this is something else.
Carl, come support.
Franco, you and Fritz take the body upstairs and out of sight. I don't want the hostages to think too much.
Mayday, mayday. Anyone copying Channel 9?
Attention, whoever you are. This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
You're most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, Hans, wrong guess. Would you like to go for double jeopardy where the scores can really change?
Who are you then?
Just a fly in the ointment, Hans.
Mr. Mystery Guest. You have me at a loss. You know my name, but who are you?
You the guy in the car?
What's left of him? Can you identify yourself?
Not now. Maybe later.
So what do I call you?
Call me... Roy.
Well, who the hell you been talking to? We don't know that either, sir. You won't give us his name. Powell, has it occurred to you he could be one of the terrorists pulling your chain? I don't think so, sir.
Mr. Takagi chose his people well, Mrs.
Gennaro. Miss Gennaro.
Touching, cowboy, touching. Or should I call you Mr. McLean? Mr. Officer John McLean.
I'm John McClane. You're,
Clay. Bill McLean. Put down the gun.
Well. Hans. You got something. Tell me you got something.
Just McLean's name, badge number, employment record, vital statistics, and his family's home address.
Is there something you'd like to say to them if they're watching?
Come home.
Mrs. McLean. Honors to make your acquaintance. McLean, I have some news for you.
Hi, honey.
Still the cowboy, Mr. McLean.
How is my wife, Holly? Holly Gennaro.
Holly McLean.
Hello, Holly.
All right, there we go. Excellent.
Okay, so there you have it. I'm just going to wrap this up, Mitch.
Let me just
Okay,
make sure
so I hope that this presentation sheds some light on a couple of things. One is that there are no scenes or subplots or elements that are that can be wasted in the course of a movie. Everything is very specific and very and has a place and a purpose. And it kind of takes a presentation like this maybe to emphasize that, but it's something that people unconsciously or subconsciously know when they come out of the movie. It's just tight storytelling. Did they write this version of the script on the first shot? I heavily doubt it. I bet this script probably went through 40 revisions. I'd be surprised if it was any less. And each time they circle down, they drill deeper and deeper. Did they have this method when they did it? Impossible to say. But you see the beauty of it on all these different levels. Just to recap briefly, that's us. Core elements. Characterization and setting. They set up your subplots. In Die Hard, we met his character on the plane. We learned about him in the limo, and we saw the struggle he has and what his personal goal is. The setting was pretty self-evident. The main subplot was the relationship with his wife, which was the whole reason, the whole MO for the movie, for him being there at this time. If he didn't have that MO, if that subplot wasn't there, it wasn't important, they'd have to think of some other reason why he could end up in the building. And if he had the opportunity to escape, if it wasn't his wife, maybe he would have. The relationship had to be strong enough, and his personal goal had to be strong enough to keep him in the game. Primary situation, plot motivation, and the primary obstacles, the movement to resolve the situation the movie presents. Then there's the first turning point. These are other more advanced sort of things that we discuss, and the thematic gap, which we go into more heavily in our lecture series. But this is pretty much you can see the building blocks of pretty much every movie. If you want, you can request a copy of this PowerPoint, or at least just that one sheet of the core elements, and take them around to every single movie that you know of. And if you find a film that doesn't fit into this, email us. We want to look into it. We strongly believe that these core elements, presented as they are the building blocks, the pattern found, reverse engineered rather, from successful films, and putting them into use in a forward fashion can help create compelling new films and screenplays. So I want to thank you very much for, one more thing. Once you know the core elements, you will know where all your ideas belong. Our software helps you do that. I'm not going to get into that now, but you feel free to look on the website, reelwriting.com, learn about plot control software. You'll see how it works with the core elements. It'll see how it works with the way your mind and your imagination and your creativity works. And I want to thank you for staying in there and listening to me for the last hour and a half. And we hope to see you again. I'm going to turn it back over to Mitch. Thank you very much.
All right, great work. Thank you.
Howard, that was fantastic. Really, really great. So, I see we were, and I know that the content was great because, as is the case with everybody leading busy lives, inevitably people have to leave the webinars, or they come back and they hope for the replay. But I just want to tell you that the vast majority, and by vast majority I mean literally you can count on one hand the amount of people that left from start to finish of this presentation. So as it has been in all other venues, you who have been here really, really validated just how powerful the layout. And Die Hard, we've seen a couple of you saying it. It really does hold up. It's just one of those movies that it's old, but it's timeless. It really is an archetypal movie, and it really works great in terms of a breakdown like this. So, as promised, what we do want to do is there were a couple of people that had some questions throughout. I'm going to have to leave it up to Mitch and Howard's energy level to see whether or not we want to go into private one-on-ones this evening. But we certainly have time for any questions about this presentation, about anything in Reelwriting. We want to make sure, as we promised, to give you a chance to ask your questions. So if you do have questions, if you would like to get on the conversation and talk, Mitch, I guess we should just try that link, right?
Yeah, I think that's the link. I think it's just I'll just post it.
So Mitch, yeah, just change this.
Because I'm posting as Howard for some reason. I made a comment earlier and it came out as Howard. I'm not sure what's going on there.
So Mitch will post a link, and basically for those that may want to jump on and ask a conversation verbally, you're welcome to click on that link, and that will actually give you one of the panel seats. Please know that it will ask for permission to use your microphone and camera. And so if you got naked people walking in the background, you might not want to accept, or you might. That's really your call. But that said, just know that will happen. If you would prefer to ask your questions via the chat, we'll just look at the chat roll and we will just take them as they come. Okay, and our first winner is Robin. Robin, thanks so much for being here. Robin says, any way to use an 8-act setup with the software? Now, Mitch, this brings up an interesting aspect, because how much do we want to answer that with Control Writer?
Right. Obviously, the focus today has been Reelwriting and our software plot control. We have, if you've been on our mailing list over the last month or so, you know that we released this software Control Writer. Control Writer certainly unlocks the ability to use something such as an 8-act setup, but specifically plot control is not rooted in an 8-act setup. It is rooted in a very specific understanding and breakdown of the 3-act structure. It takes those core elements and it spreads them out on what I call the timeline, and I break it down by the traditional familiar 3 acts instead of trying to confuse it by saying it's 12 acts. There's actually 12 different parts to the timeline that are included there, but just to segment it out along the way that people are very familiar with, which is the 3 acts. And I do believe that the 3 acts are very, very, very much present there. And I even demonstrated in the mega course which if anybody's interested in getting access to the mega course, we could probably do a special price. We won't give the link here, but you can email support@reelwriting.com. But if you're interested in getting access to that, we can get you a special price for that. But in the mega course, I demonstrate that the movie Armageddon is 4 acts. And the distinction of why it's 4 acts is specifically because in most movies, Howard mentioned that there is a primary obstacle. And in most movies, there's one primary obstacle, and that's what the main character deals with during Act 2. And that's what makes it Act 2. They're dealing not so much with the primary situation, they're dealing specifically with the primary obstacle. In Armageddon, and I explain this in the mega course, there's 2 primary obstacles. There's the first primary obstacle, and then there's a second primary obstacle. The first primary obstacle, very briefly, is that they have to get to the actual asteroid in Armageddon. If they destroy an asteroid, it's not about that movie. And then then once they land on the asteroid, there's a whole new problem. They land in the wrong place. So there's 2 primary obstacles, and because of that, I classify that as a 4-act. Obviously, I don't know anything about the specific 8-act structure that you're referring to, but our software Control Writer, like I said, if you've been on our list, you know we've been promoting it, specifically would allow you to put your own 8-act structure into the movie, someone else's structure that you might follow, and utilize the same power of the software without being locked into the structure that Plot Control specifically uses. I think that answers that question. I hope.
Yeah, that was great. So yeah, so again, just to sort of summarize and clarify for those that may not know, the new version of Plot Control 3.0 that is coming out is going to be on the Control Writer platform.
Can you just quickly just mute Brad? Thanks for joining us. Just please mute yourself until we're ready to have a conversation with you. If you don't mind.
Yeah, Brad. Yeah, Brad. If you, I think he did. Okay, we're good. Yeah, you don't have to go off completely, disappear. Just mute the microphone temporarily. But in any event, as we were saying, so the Control Writer and Plot Control 3.0 will be on that Control Writer platform. So you get to keep everything that Plot Control has. It's just per your question, Robin. It opens up the architecture of the software a little bit to be able to supplement the structure and define your acts a little bit differently. The other question that came up earlier, I'll just address very briefly, is with regard to just other movie examples. And many of you on the call I recognize as part of our mega course level community. But for those of you that are not familiar with it, I can tell you that in addition to a detailed expansion and breakdown of what Howard did such a phenomenal job of teaching tonight, the mega course goes into even greater detail on every layer of thinking about this. And one of the ways that he does that is Mitch actually uses these 10 movie examples. And so basically what we did with Die Hard, he does with movies of all different genres. So a romantic comedy, a drama movie, and some of them are Best Picture winners. So the Oscar category. So don't think for a moment that this is all about blockbusters. It goes right to the heart of romantic comedies and even the the artsier movies like A Slumdog Millionaire. And then last but not least, most importantly, Mitch actually goes and builds an original script, an original story from scratch throughout the training in that course. So for those of you that haven't seen it or have an interest in that, I don't want to go crazy promoting it here only because the question came up to clarify about where you're able to actually see more detailed breakdowns on different movies. The mega course goes into that in great detail. So I see some other questions coming up here. Let's see. Let me start with. Let's see. We'll just take them in order. So SG says, "What would you say if I asked you what Die Hard's theme is an argument for?" I tell you what, SG, if you're able to jump on the call and explain that a little further, or type it in the chat, unless Mitch, you know what he's.
Well, I'm going to suggest that she's probably referring to the way other people who screenwriting probably refer to and try to explain the theme. So I think one of the real breakthroughs for me as a screenwriter when I first figured this stuff out is, listen, I've probably been through all the same training material when I first got involved with screenwriting and followed all I want to be careful what I say here, but all the experts that exist. And, you know, it was the realization that there's a lot of misinformation out there really was eye-opening for me. And this understanding of theme, it really is the root of how the core elements came to be. It was identifying certain specific things about movies, and I can tell you that it's hard to find a successful movie. Let me put it this way: it's hard to find a successful screenplay, which I define as one that was made into a movie, that doesn't handle theme this way. All these high concept ideas, which the question is referring to, I don't think is you can find really. I mean, you can certainly always try to bend and twist facts and realities about movies to fit whatever it is you're trying to explain away. But this is really a way of approaching theme that not only can be demonstrated to be validated by movies that exist, but actually, so not only can you find this pattern in movies that are made, in almost all movies that are made, you'll find this relationship between the character's personal goal and the theme, and you're going to find this relationship, and you're going to find this pattern. You can actually take it to your own work and apply it. So you can utilize, once you understand this, now you can go back to your own work, you can get into our software, and you can go into the software and say, well, here's the personal goal, and now I can figure out what the theme of my movie should be. Not what I want it to be, what it should be for my movie. And this is the idea of A and negative A that Howard brought up. It's not A and B or A and C or A and Z, but it's A and negative A. That was, of course, he was talking about the plot motivation and the resolution goal, but actually it applies even with the theme on a conceptual level. We talk about in the mega course. The idea that there's the personal goal, what the character most fundamentally wants, and then there's this sort of rooted in that is the conceptual opposite, which then roots out the theme, and the theme springs forth from that. So I think that's probably what you meant. I don't know.
And actually, Mitch, part of what you got into might have answered another question that came up from John, which was, do you develop the theme first? Or is it really something that develops out of the more fuller fleshing out of the story?
Well, I think that generally I would say what you just said is accurate. That the theme comes out of developing. Look, there's just a natural pattern to way people normally will just go through the writing process and the creation process of making a movie. So most people don't start with the theme of the movie. I want to make a movie about X or Y, and if they do that, they're usually starting with subject matter, which Howard talked about before. They're talking about, I want to make a movie that's rooted in something to do with the environment, let's say. So, but the theme is usually something that comes out of, I've got this idea for a story. I've got a great giant meteorite that's going to hit the Earth, and now I'm going to develop out that. And now there's going to be a theme that's got to be extracted to really write the movie correctly. And the software and the whole idea of using this approach to the core elements in the Screenwriting Mega Course is that we extract the theme out of that. Not the theme that I want to say. You can start that way. You can certainly start with your theme and build your story around it. It's much more difficult. Much more difficult. We always start with that core story, that primary situation or that character, and then the theme extracts out of that. I know Howard wanted to jump in.
Yeah, thanks for my noise.
You're all messed up.
Can you hear me?
Not very good.
Audio quality is not good, Howard. Battery's low, or are you plugged in, or?
I'm plugged in. We kill Skype. How's this? Is better?
It's pretty bad. Audio quality is not great.
Okay, well, thank you and good night.
Did we lose Brad? I was just about to go to Brad, and then he jumped off.
Can you switch off the headphones, maybe, or try and reset your headphones?
They're wired headphones. They should be good.
There's Brad. Let's see if Brad comes back. We'll go to Brad before we lose him because he's.
I'll text you. Leave my mouth.
Okay. Nope. There it is. Hey, Brad. Can you hear me? This is Sean. If your mic may still be muted from before. And your camera is really blurry or whatever we see back there, but either text if you could hear me, or speak even better if you can. We'd love to go to you live, but if we can't get the audio or visuals working, then we'll just return to the chat questions. In 3, 2, 1.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
We'll
one of the
just
things that was the when you look at the video that we played about Die Hard, and you see how important dialogue is rooted in all of these things. So sometimes we sit there and we as writers, we're trying to what are the people going to say or do. When you identify your core elements, it determines what is relevant to your movie all the way through, and that determination actually goes beyond just sort of big broad concepts or thematic concepts, but we see that people in a movie are talking about the theme. That's what the conversations and the dialogue in a movie are about. They're about the theme itself. They're about what's going on, the big primary situation or the primary obstacle, and then they're about the theme. So it roots everything when you do this right. It roots everything into a proper focus for a movie, and that's the difference between screenplays that don't make it and the really successful ones is when they get this right, everything works. Everything's rooted together. Everything gets focused the way it needs to be focused, all the way down to dialogue. Dialogue is determined by your core elements. Because if characters are in your screenplays are talking about something that is not rooted in the core elements, the dialogue is probably extraneous. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what makes good dialogue. Good dialogue is dialogue that roots itself into the core elements. Obviously, it's got to be well-written dialogue, but even more than that, the characters have to be talking about what the movie is most fundamentally about. And when you have your core elements, then you know what your movie is most fundamentally about. You want to try again, Howard?
Sure. How's it sounding now? Any better?
Much better. Much better. We can hear you.
Okay. My only point was that, from like 12 minutes ago, is that oftentimes when you get caught up in the writing process, taking a pause and answering questions about the theme. Now, it's not a theme you're creating, necessarily. It's a theme that's already evident in the creative work. All you're doing is kind of uncovering it. You're not dreaming up anything new and saying, hey, let's make the theme about this. It's taking what you have, and oftentimes you need a coach or an objective person or a consultant to help you do that, but they're looking at what you wrote objectively and saying, I'm seeing a pattern here. And so in a sense, while you're telling your story about your character going through their day or their week or whatever travails they're encountering, what's there intrinsic in that creative process is some sort of a theme. And oftentimes people get stuck because they don't really think about that until it's way too late, whereas it's actually a useful guide to writing the third act in a sense. Oftentimes the results of what happens in the third act or the climax come about because the theme and the plot kind of crash into each other. But if people don't know or actively understand what their theme is that they've been developing all this time, they often get lost at that point. And to the reader or the moviegoer, it kind of is unfocused. It feels incomplete. So by deciphering the theme that you've already put into your work at some point in the process helps you really on the trajectory of really focusing and creating a really tight and focused story. That's what I was trying to say. Hope it got across.
Mitch, Leslie had sent us a private note, but I did get her permission to ask the question publicly, and it is a good one. So Leslie, just for further deepening into the theme, was saying, how did you decide identity was a theme rather than a subplot for Die Hard?
Right, so I think the answer is I didn't decide that it was the theme. It is the theme. And I doubt the writers decided this would be the theme. I think that, the writers in this case, Shane Black. Right, was Shane Black out?
No, it was Stephen D'Souza.
Oh, right. I'm confusing it.
And others, yeah.
He did the Mel Gibson movies, right?
Lethal Weapons.
Lethal Weapons, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, so I'm sure they were just trying to write a great movie, but there are writers who just intuitively get it. They get what works in movies. They understand, like, they layer the subplots out correctly. So the theme of Die Hard was just my reverse engineering the movie, and that was the theme that was there. I imagine you could probably ask the writer, and they probably wouldn't necessarily even identify that as the theme. But the goal with the process that I went through in figuring out these core elements, not that I went out to try and find 8 core elements and say, oh, now I've got something that I'm going to put into software. It was I was trying to figure out why in the world do certain movies work all the time, certain writers are successful, and then I was struggling, and what are they doing differently? What is it about my movies that that my screenplays and screenplays I was writing with Howard and stuff? What is it about what is the difference? Where's the point of differentiation? And I sat down and wanted to really figure it out, and it it was the discovery of the movie. It was really to tell the story. I mean, I tell the whole story in the mega course, but it really came out of the movie Liar initially, and then Die Hard was a later movie. And in the movie Liar as well, all these things, these patterns are there, and just dozens and dozens of movies we've been through, you find these patterns. But it's just that in reverse engineering the movie Die Hard, we discovered that identity was the real core theme of the movie, and it links over to his role, his personal goal, why he's there in the first place. It's not quite as tight as it could be if when you work with the software, you really can tighten that up, but clearly the theme of the movie in this case is Die Hard, and it links over to his personal goal, which is about his relationship, and that's the main subplot. The main subplot in the movie Die Hard is him and his wife, and that relationship that underlies. And notice there's not much time between them. There's one scene with Bruce Willis's character McClane and his wife at the beginning, and then the terrorists take over the building. And then at the end, they're together. But we weave together this whole subplot by using this theme. The theme weaves in the subplot where the two characters of the subplot is McClane and his wife. They're never even together, yet there's a whole subplot that comes out of that. So that's something to think about also. Howard.
Yeah, no, just a funny little story. I met the writer of Liar, but the context was I didn't know he was the writer of Liar. And actually, was it? I forgot the terms, the situation. But I remember talking about it, and he goes, "Yeah, tell me about Liar. Why was it so interesting, and why did it work so well?" And I went through this whole thing, and he goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's amazing, because I wrote Liar." And I was like, "What?" And I found, well, besides another way to greet someone you really admire is to say, "You know what's great about that movie you wrote?" And everyone wants to hear, "Oh yes, please tell me." But it's amazing the things I brought up. It's true. He didn't consider them. I mean, that script also, in all fairness to everybody involved, went through a lot of writers in a whole development period. And I'm sure the original script he wrote was changed a lot to go in. But the fact of the matter is, writers, people don't recognize their own genius, in a lot of ways. Things just kind of work.
Well, I think the point you're making here is very important because it went through with also Armageddon. We know there's like 50 writers on that movie. Sometimes they'll just do pass after pass. They've got a good concept. A lawyer can't tell lies. The core concept is very funny right off the bat. Just say it. It's funny, and the studio wants to make a movie based on this core concept because they know they can sell the idea of a lawyer can't tell a lie with Jim Carrey's the lawyer. You're gonna be able to sell that, but we got to get a script that works. And what's interesting is they'll do pass after pass after pass until they've got a screenplay that has these core elements, and that's when and meets sort of the timeline that we lay out. And when they have that is when they say, now we've got a screenplay that will work as a movie. In other words, they're searching for the pattern that we have in our software plot control, for the pattern and the timeline and the core elements that we go through in our mega course.
And you know,
that's what the studios are searching for.
And you know what they do is they will buy a story for the story, knowing that they're going to basically, gang up on it with writers who will just write some of the action sequences, writers that'll write the romance, writers that'll write the funny lines, writers that'll put things together. But if they have the core, if you bring to them the core of a really good story, with all the elements, the core elements in place, in the right places, and they're the right elements, they will buy your script even if you're not great at dialogue, even if you're not great at romance writing, things like that. They will buy it knowing that they have the kernel of a really hot story, and then they're gonna hire tons more writers anyway. That's sort of the Hollywood process. So, essentially, this is more important than just writing really good dialogue. This is more important than just writing really good action sequences. In fact, you don't have to be able to write any of those, but still be able to put together and pitch, or at least on paper, the elements of a great story beginning to end, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and there's something just to tie a few things together, because to give everybody some background, there's something that comes up time and time again as we're dealing, and we speak at various events, and we obviously meet people inside the industry, out, and there's sort of the industry old guard who does it the traditional way, and there are people who want to sort of consider this or label this as formula. God, this is somebody's formula. It's not. There's no paint by numbers in Hollywood. It doesn't work that way, and it's really not about that. And it's very important that people understand really what the science is behind this and where it comes from. Because what happens in any great process, and it can be a universal process, it can be a creative process, the very first time that process was ever created, it was entirely an artistic and discovery process. It didn't exist before. We didn't know how to explain it. Before, the very first time somebody ever wired a house properly for electricity, there was a lot of trial and error in that. There were some artistic license that was taken in doing that properly, and I'm going to guess that some people probably died in the effort of first trying to wire electricity properly. But now, when it comes down to something like that we simply take for granted in today's society, there's a code for that. There's a framework. There's a blueprint. There's a process for properly wiring a building. Now, I'm not an expert in that particular subject matter, so I'm not getting into nuances, but you get the idea. And the very same thing is true about movies, and the reason why the building block approach works is not because we reinvented some new way to write movies. This was born out of the study of what in Hollywood, independent or otherwise, was working well. We don't have to guess as to whether or not this worked because these were reverse engineered from movies that were produced. They were sold. They were huge hits critically. So when someone says, well, how do you know this is just you thinking? It's actually, no, it's not. This is the industry validating this framework because this is the movies that are getting made. These are the movies that have been critically acclaimed. And these are the building blocks that make up those movies. And so rather than thinking of the approach of something like this when you have the insight as a formula, try to understand and remember that this is really a matter of the framework that is the building blocks behind this. So with that said, John, I have not lost your question here. John is asking, and Mitch, I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if Howard's seen it. I have not seen it yet, and I'm dying to see it. What is the theme of American Sniper? I need to compare Die Hard with Sniper to see the difference. Have either of you guys seen American Sniper yet?
No, I have not seen it, so I couldn't. Would not be able to comment, unfortunately.
John, to be continued. If you wouldn't mind, send an email to support@controlwriter.com, or excuse me, support@reelwriting.com will also get to us, of course. So I'll just type it in the chat actually. Support@reelwriting.com, and just shoot us a reminder of that because one of us is going to be seeing that in the near future, and when that happens, we'll be happy to answer that question. I'm sorry we can't answer it publicly, but not having seen it yet, other than knowing the subject matter, we don't want to speak out of our you-know-what. All right, next. Alan's. Alan, if you can hear this, I'm going to just send you a chat. You had sent me a private note, so before I say this publicly, I want your permission first. Actually, this is a technical question. Mitch, can you shoot him an answer?
The answer is we're working on it, and we will get. There's updates to the software coming. He has a question about Control Writer software, so that's fine. Technical question, that's all. But right now, currently there is not, but it's in the works. I think that's the correct answer.
Fair enough. So, Alan, there's a delay, as many of you know, with Google Hangout technology, but eventually you'll hear it, and hope that answers your question. Robin, thank you for your kind words. We appreciate it. I know Howard appreciates it as well. Any other questions, guys? We're going to do sort of a last call for questions. I'll type it in here. I'm typing in last call for questions. Chat is real time, so if you are seeing the chat. We've had a number of requests for replays throughout the webinar tonight. And you know, it's not that we're trying to be all cheesy and say, well, there may not be a replay. It's because with technology, you just never know. So until we verify that it actually recorded properly and it works, we always tell people, listen, number one, you want to be live and get to see the whole thing and ask your questions. And also, we can never guarantee a replay because you never know what can happen technically. But the answer to the question of will there be a replay, yes, assuming the recording works, we will send out a link so that you'll be able to watch this again. And certainly for anyone who is a MegaCourse member, you will always have access to all webinar replays inside your members area under the tab for that. Again, last call for questions. I'm seeing. I think we've covered it pretty good here, guys. I'll give it another 20-second, 30-second sort of sign up for all three of us. I'll let Howard say his goodbyes. Mitch can close us out, and if anybody else, Michael's saying, will there be a place I can print out the diagrams? Well, Michael, we're going to be sending a link to actually download the presentation via email. So it'll probably be a PDF version of this. It won't be the PowerPoint. It'll be the PDF version, and you'll be able to at least refer to all those diagrams.
Yeah, we'll get the diagram, the layout of the core elements out. I think that's what Howard's going to send out.
Yep.
But just email support at reelwriting.com. And
we've got the attendee list, so I just thought we'd get them to the attendees.
Yeah, but that's in Webinar Jam, so it's not necessarily so simple to do it that way. I think it'd be easier. Anybody who wants it, just to simply email support@reelwriting.com, then we'll send it back to you. That's the way to do that. And as well, if you're interested in getting special price access for the MegaCourse, email also support@reelwriting.com. We'll get you a special link for the software or for the MegaCourse. The MegaCourse comes with the software too.
Okay. For everybody saying thank you, you're sincerely welcome. We love being here with you. It's been a really busy with the launch of Control Writer. It's been a very, very busy 2015, and so we wanted to do the webinar actually earlier in the month and even in January, but I'm glad we finally had an opportunity to present this to you today. This is certainly not going to be the last of our training and Q&A series. Probably the next one that we'll do whenever it comes, it will not be content that is prepared with this length. We'll do probably Mitch or Howard or both. We'll do the normal prepared dispatch of about 10 to 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll devote the rest of the entire session, as we always do, to giving you the opportunity to work privately with us on your stories and work through the core elements and whatever questions you guys have. But Mitch, I'm turning it back to you to close us out, and let me just see if there's any other.
Last words, Howard, before.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for putting up with my voice. I don't usually talk in this register, and if you want to nominate some other films that we could sort of tear apart in our process in future events, you can send that information to Reelwriting too, and we'll start tackling those.
All right, so thank you, everybody. We're going to end the webinar now. It's been great. Appreciate Howard for presenting the content, and Sean for moderating everything. Thank you, everybody, for participating and being on this. And everybody should have a good night, and we'll hopefully hear from you very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.